Warning: the following podcast includes discussions about mental health. This may be triggering for some viewers.
Welcome to another episode of Conversations on the Couch. I am Cass and I am here with, I have been fangirling a little bit behind the scenes with, what can we say, multi-instrumentalist, world-renowned virtuoso percussionist, Adelaide Symphony Orchestra percussionist for 15 years, 3 nationally acclaimed albums as a singer-songwriter, written and recorded a original rock opera, poet, performer, polymath who plays many instruments. I think there's like a little round of applause here. Please welcome Miss Fleur Green to the studio.
Thank you, Cass.
Welcome. I am really excited about chatting to you today because we met only about 4 months ago.
Well, it feels like a lot longer than that.
It does, doesn't it? I feel like we've been friends forever, but we spoke about doing a podcast, so it's sort of weird that it's sort of actually happened.
It is happening as we speak.
It is happening. But I want to ask you some questions today. We've only known each other for a few months, but I feel like it's been a lifetime, and I feel like our meeting was fortuitous.
I think it came at the right time. I mean, sometimes we cross paths with a certain amount of serendipity, and it was a fortuitous meeting for me.
Yeah.
As well.
And tell me about, I want to hear your story because I know pockets of it. You know, as we box in the gym, we come out with little things, but I want people to know your story because as much as you are this amazing artist, there's been some pockets in your life that have been challenging as well. So tell me about your story.
All right. Well, I guess I'll start with music because I'm a musician. I've been bred a musician, born into a musical family. And, I think we're all imperfect. And I think every story is different. Mm-hmm. My story involves a lot of music as the rock in my life. Yeah. So I was born into a musical family. My brother's a virtuoso pianist, and he was quite a child prodigy growing up. So I also trained as in classical studies, and I started violin at the age of 3. And then piano at the age of 4, and then fell into percussion at the age of about 9. So I grew up with a purely classical diet of music. My parents were very fastidious about us being on this classical diet. So when I started earning my own money as a teenager, I branched out into... the first album I bought with my own pocket money was the White Album by the Beatles. And I started songwriting when I was 15. Okay. And I found a real joy in that because the rigors of classical music training can be quite intense and demanding and they occupy a lot of hours. I had a lot of teachers saying, you have to practice a minimum of 6 hours a day, and with 3 instruments under my belt, you can imagine that's impossible. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I was in demand as a musician all throughout my high schooling, and when I just decided to go to university, I wanted to study music. It was the obvious choice for me. Mm-hmm. And I focused on percussion because there's lots of violinists, lots of pianists in the world, but at that stage there weren't many female percussionists. Mm-hmm. So I was in a very male-dominated field and absolutely loving it. I met some, I guess, challenges being in that male-dominated field at the time. There were a few boys around who thought that girls couldn't play snare drum and that sort of thing, and my response generally was, "See you in the practice room, boys."
And was this in the 80s, 90s? Like, what year are we talking about?
Well, you're pegging me a little bit older than I am.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was thinking about my own age. 90s.
2000s, actually.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Apologies.
The years have not been kind, apparently.
No. I just think we're so keen, you know. I just probably says more about me than you. So okay, so the noughties. We're talking about the noughties.
Yeah,
okay.
so at Elder Conservatorium in Adelaide in the noughties, and I think because of the pressure from the male-dominated industry, I worked very, very hard to excel and fight in the face of that belief that girls couldn't play snare drums, or that percussion was not meant for girls or young women. So I worked very, very hard, and because of that I was afforded a lot of opportunity to go and study internationally, and I was awarded a lot of prizes, and that took me to around the country and in competitions, and then eventually to study in Tokyo, Croatia, Austria, London, and the United States, which is fantastic. It's
amazing.
Playing music around the world with really high class players.
And how old were you at this stage?
Grasshopper of, I think, about the age of 22, 23.
Yeah, right. Young.
Very young, and some would say too hardworking. There wasn't a lot of balance in my life because of the demands of classical, the nature of classical music, and how rigorous the training was in order to excel.
And then what? You were in America.
Yes. Well, I did an extensive world tour. I had training in Tokyo with the godmother of Marimba, which is quite a little known instrument in popular culture, but in the percussion circles it's one of the standard, an instrument that a lot of repertoire is written on. And I'd spent 6 months in Tokyo with Abe Sensei, and learning about this Japanese literature and her repertoire, which she influenced heavily. And after that I went to compete in Austria and study in Croatia, and the competition was amazing. It was there were 250 marimbists from all over the world, and I was the only Australian entrant, and I ended up progressing to the second round and becoming one of the top 25 marimba players in the world, as the only Australian entrant. And then in this sort of rigorous schedule, I went on to study in America, and I'd been afforded a scholarship there to study in Baltimore at Peabody Conservatory, part of St. Johns Hopkins, which is, funnily enough, also where Tori Amos went, who I'm a great fan of her work as a songwriter. And why I mention that is because we were both actually kicked out of Peabody, so we share that in common as well. Unfortunately, I was repatriated from America because I had a period of illness that I didn't know what was happening, but I basically just had to stop and was repatriated from America in the middle of my studies. Unexplainably, surely there could have been some triggers, like the stress and the rigors of the study that I was involved in, and the schedule that I had signed myself up for. But it was something new. It was, I had to deal with an illness that I was diagnosed with. So, I couldn't really do that in America without the support of family or friends. So I was flown back to Adelaide to recover. And that was a real challenge because I couldn't play music for a while, and that really was a challenge for me.
Yeah. And can you talk about your illness? Because I think it's something that will resonate with lots of people, even if they don't have the type of illness that you went through, but that where you push, and then you get to that point where you go...
Well, I can talk about it. I've been diagnosed with several different things over the course of my lifetime, but I have a diagnosis of bipolar, and there are other sort of more bespoke diagnoses surrounding that. And I find it really interesting that, you know, everyone's story is different, and mental health and balance in life is very hard to achieve for people. I mean, when I was doing the training and the study and the competition, I was obviously pushing myself very, very hard. I lacked that balance. But when I received that diagnosis at 23, it was very confusing because, you know, suddenly after being quite successful as a grasshopper, I had this new thing to deal with, be treated for, and manage. And obviously it affected my ability to do what I had done with my career. So in that sense, I had to adapt to what was happening with my treatment, my understanding of it, my treating team, how I managed with them, my family, and also how to adapt my love of music and my artistic output with this new aspect of my psyche, if you will, like this new challenge.
And some parts of it have been challenging.
Yes. Well, I mean, when I first got diagnosed, the treatment was so severe that I couldn't play music for 5 years. And that for me was quite devastating and disruptive because it was something that I had done my whole life and was deeply ingrained in my personality and my how I functioned in the world. So not being able to play music was very devastating for me, but slowly I began to change. The treatment that I was on changed, and I started having some energy to rebuild my my musical identity so that it adapted with my condition, if you like.
Yeah. So we've had this diagnosis, and one of the things I want to go to and I want to talk about, because we've spoken about this, you know, one-on-one in our sessions, is you get this diagnosis, you're on this roundabout now of medication and seeing specialists and things, and that's challenging. And I really resonate with you sitting there saying, you know, not only did you for 5 years stop this thing that was your life, that was your being, your music, you couldn't even move, could you?
Well, I mean, it was, the treatment that I was on was very sedating and very debilitating, so it was virtually like a chemical way of wrapping my brain up in cotton wool. So my friends, my close friends, my dear friends refer to those years as my zombie years, because I really couldn't, you know, it was a major achievement to put the kettle on, make a cup of tea. And I just couldn't think, you know, that was from age 23 to 28, you know, in those formative years when most people are finding love, settling down, having children, all that sort of stuff. But really it was just a time for me where I was in recovery and dealing with a diagnosis of something that I had never heard of prior to the age of 23, or had a vague idea about, but no real, you know, knowledge or experience of at that stage. So I was weathering the storm and trying to build back stronger, but really it was just because of the treatment, I was just surviving. And when my treating team changed and the treatment that I was on became different, I felt more energy, a little bit more energy, still sort of sleeping very long periods, but I had a very supportive friend at the time who said, "You're a musician, Fleur, like what do you want to do?" And I just said, you know, I'm not capable of doing what I did because of my changed circumstances and this illness that I'm or this condition that I now live with. So I think I want to adapt, and I really would like to sing songs and write songs and play the piano and maybe play some percussion and some violin and write music that speaks of my experience and speaks hopefully to other people in a way that would challenge them or move them or inspire them. And I'd really love to do that, because I did write songs when I was a 15-year-old, and it was just like returning to something organically that didn't have the pressure associated with it that the rigours of being a virtuoso percussionist did. So, and my brain could kind of handle that. And even though, I've worked very hard as a songwriter over the last 15 years, but when I started, it was really tentative and it was really shy, and I was basically whispering and playing and just sort of really fragile singing, because I'd taken such a large chunk of time off music and my brain had been through a lot. So, but when I did start singing again, it felt very, it felt amazing to reconnect to music in my own way with my own voice. Also an outlet and part of the healing process, I think.
Yeah.
Because I firmly believe that confidence comes with practice, and I just committed to practicing my craft and learning how to write songs, and it helped my recovery.
And you've done an amazing job with that, from the acclaimed side of what you've written and what you've done.
Thank you, Cass.
And we have a there's going to be a link in this, because you've just released an album, a single.
I've released a single, and I've got a couple more on the way. And in December I'll be releasing a full EP, which I'm very proud of, because it's the first solo EP that I've done. I've released a couple of albums now with bands, but this EP is no one else played on the album. So, I play piano, violin, percussion, and sing, and they're all original songs.
And the songs, what are the stories? Without giving too much away.
Well, this album is called Fallen Leaves. See me, see you, see straight through to the other side. And they're songs about love, and there are some comments, I suppose, on what is happening in our society at the moment with the homelessness crisis. There's a track called Court, which is the next single that's coming out in a few days. And that song tries to paint with dignity people caught in the homelessness crisis at the moment, which is an ever-increasing societal problem. And I firmly believe that housing is a human right, and that we all should be concerned when people are not housed. And I think it costs us more to not care about that than it does to ignore it. But there are some very whimsical tunes on the album as well. I hope the architecture of the album is both heavy and sweet, and a big cabaret, because I do like a bit of theatre.
And I love the theatre that we have in our sessions. I love all my students, I promise you that. But I have loved having you and the journey that we've both been through over the last 4 months. And I'm definitely nowhere acclaimed to you. I've just done a little bit of music in my, early years. But I love our sessions. I love our boxing. I love our paradiddles. We do have a bit of theatre when we're in the gym.
I hope you realise the impact you have had on me and your other gym attendees, because the community that is built at this gym is incredible, and the personalised, bespoke sort of treatment you give to people is incredible. And I have never stepped in a gym where someone says, "What do you want to box to?" I mean, I box to Bartók, people. Bartók's a Hungarian classical composer that I dearly love, and a bit of Nina Simone. I mean, this is the sort of music you want to exercise to, not the doof that normally
electronic dance music.
The EDM that normally comes through. I mean, I've boxed to opera here, and I'll happily admit that, and I love it. It actually keeps me moving, and I've found that being a part of a community gym or a gym where community is so important, has helped my desire to improve my fitness and strength, and that it just has a flow-on effect to improve your mental health.
Yeah. And
your balance. So thank you, Cass.
Look, it's a pleasure, and I have loved I thought I had a fairly well-rounded sense of music, but you've definitely challenged me to box to music that I wouldn't necessarily box to, but you've also opened up my mind in regards to working with music and making it, we are bespoke, but having you at the gym and working with you and seeing the change that has been the last 4 months with you as well it's just been like this flower sort of blossoming and blooming, which has been
Thank you, dear.
Beautiful. I never thought that the girl with the boots would be lifting weights or doing step classes or anything like that. So it's been fantastic to see you blossom and grow into that as well, which
thank you kindly.
Which has been amazing. And I have noticed as well this, and we've spoken about it as well, this mental health change, this positive mental health change, which is...
Yes. Look, there's a number of contributing factors that assist in positive mental health, and I think everyone's journey is going to be different because everyone's story is different, everyone's upbringing is different, everyone's environment is different, and it's really whatever works. And I'm just a really grateful to have found routine that works for me, treatment that works for me, treating support team that works for me, and a job that I can do that gives me a sense of giving back. I think music's can be a very cathartic outlet, but if you can give that to someone else and it helps them. I've been working in aged care settings in the hospital, in the geriatric and palliative care unit, and I've been working in aged care settings playing violin and piano to people, who are getting towards the end of their life. And, in those systems, in the hospital and aged care system, there isn't much art. And the impact it has on people is profound.
It is profound.
And people really, it gives them happiness, and it gives them memory, and it gives them nostalgia, and it gives them something to sing to, and singing makes you happier. It's scientifically proven. So it's good to finally sort of be balanced, and I will likely, everyone has something. I believe that, and you're very lucky if you've always had good health. But if you do come across good health, it takes time to, sometimes years, in my case about 15 years, to establish routine, treating team, and situations that are good for your ongoing sustained health. But exercise has been a big part of that for me because it just helps me carry myself better in the world.
Yeah. And I think that's something that has resonated with me and the people who can handle or can work through the challenges of mental health is having that team. It's not just you on your own. It's, you know, having the right doctors, having the right medication, having the right support structures around you, and whatever that outlet, that artistic, whether it's coming to the gym and listening to opera and boxing to it, or going for a walk with friends, or, you know, whatever that is. I think that's quite poignant. That, you know, if you're struggling out there, get that team around you to help. You don't have to do it on your own.
It takes a village to raise a child in that sense. And we are all still children. I mean, I know I've got a fair bit of growing up to do sometimes myself, but no, I do believe that we live such individualistic lives. I mean, you know, through my situation, I've lived alone for a very long time, and I feel very blessed for that, but it's very individualized, and I think a lot of people muddle through, and it's community that gives us a sense of common, well, it's love, isn't it, really, at the end of the day, and it's some support in and building that routine and establishing good routine.
Yeah. I want you to get behind Miss Fleur Green. She has her single out and obviously an EP coming out very soon. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Like I said, I'm a little bit fangirling, but before you go, I've got 10 questions for you.
Oh, all right.
One answer, first thing that pops in your head, yeah?
All right, fair enough.
Are you ready?
Always.
Okay.
That was the first question, right?
Sort of. Spotify or Apple Music?
YouTube.
Instrumental or lyrics?
Lyrics.
Song currently obsessed with?
Hyper ballad, Björk.
Song you never get sick of?
Same song, really.
Boxing or cardio?
Boxing!
Sweet or savoury?
Savoury, all the way.
The worst dish your mum cooked?
Bird in a bird in a bird in a bird.
I knew you were going to say that one. The best dish your mum cooked?
Spanakopita and moussaka.
Favourite music genre?
Impossible. Classical. No, but I can't. But all right, I've said it now.
Okay, last one. Festival or concert?
Concert, hands down. Sit down, comfortable, don't speak, no phones. No eating, either.
Miss Fleur Green, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on board. Thank you for joining us on Conversations on the Couch.
Pleasure, thank you.
Awesome.